So a while back, my older brother was given this guitar from a family friend, hoping that he would learn to play guitar. This thing sat around the house for a while, and eventually I picked it up. In fact, this is the guitar that I learned to play Smoke on the Water with. At the time, I thought it would be cool to customize it and paint it myself with Green Day logos, but unfortunately I did a terrible job with it, and the paint and the epoxy was just a mess, and eventually this thing just sat around as a decorative piece.
Until now.
I started by taking the strings off, which there were only 6, even though this is a 12-string guitar. I don't think I ever really did put 12 strings on the thing, and then moved on to removing all of the hardware. Removing the epoxy was a pain in the ass. The only way to do it effectively was to scrape and scrape and scrape until my hands started to bleed. I used a blade from an X-Acto knife to get under the epoxy just to lift it up. Once all the epoxy was off, it was then time to scrape off all the paint. This took what felt like 10,000 hours of scraping. And once all the paint was gone, it was then finally time to sand. Which is exactly what I wanted to do after scraping for 10,000 hours. Before continuing on with the sanding, I thought it would be ideal to remove the bridge. I used a heat gun to heat the glue and then peeled off the bridge with a scraper. After sanding some more, I had an idea to get rid of the gouges that I put in the guitar from scraping. To clean it up a little bit more, what I did is I removed the top ply from the guitar. Now unfortunately this does make the guitar a little bit weaker, but to support the sound hole and all of that, what I'm going to do is add a little bit more bracing to the guitar. I will add this bracing to the inside of the guitar. Once I was done sanding, it was then time to stain. And as I normally do, I used a dark walnut for this one. While I was waiting for the guitar to dry, I then cleaned up the bridge. I sanded it and then stained it using the same stain. From here, it was then time to clean up all of the tuning pegs. I took them all apart and cleaned each of their individual pieces. Now some of these tuning machines were super loose, so I tightened them up and then made them work better, just so they stayed in tune a little bit better as well. Once the stain was dry, I then glued the bridge back in using regular wood glue. Because some of the holes for the tuning peg screws were too big, to fill them in what I used was toothpicks and wood glue. This ensures that the screws will have something to grab onto. From here I then sprayed the guitar using a varnish. The next day I then cleaned up the toothpicks and then sanded the guitar smooth so I can apply my second coat of varnish. Now I hate waiting for stain and varnish to dry, so what I did to kill some time was to play some basketball. Once the varnish was finally dry, I then ran over the guitar with some 2000 grit sandpaper super softly. This removed a lot of the bumps and imperfections. I then reinstalled the nut and the tuning pegs, and then restringed the guitar, and the guitar was ready to go. Okay. Well, I just stringed up the guitar and I'm super excited to hear how it sounds, so let's give it a shot.